Let's talk about the guest experience of your Splash Studio event. There are two main things we need to think about. First, designing the virtual event page, which is the venue guests will go to attend your studio event. And then setting up your confirmations, your reminder emails, and your calendar invite to make it easy to get there. Let's start by jumping into the virtual event page. As you'll see here, virtual event page has three main stages we're going to want to consider. The first is the live stream. This is where your guests will view your Splash Studio event, which you can see right in the middle of the screen. So we'll be able to design this wrapper that goes around the studio event. There is also the countdown screen. So when a guest arrives to your Splash Studio event and virtual event page, more than 30 minutes before it starts, they'll see this countdown screen letting them know they're in the right place. Inside of 30 minutes, that countdown automatically transforms into a check-in screen. A guest will be able to check themselves in, which again brings them to the live stream with the Splash Studio virtual event taking place. So as a recommendation, we want to make each of these three states look as beautiful and on brand as possible. The best way to do that, in my opinion, is by starting with the background image. So I will click on Page, and you can see here I have my background controls like the color, but as I alluded to, updating the background image is really going to make a profound effect on the guest experience here. Doesn't that look great? So within here I could change my background image, I could also adjust my logo, upload a new one, resize it, and then adjust all of the text I see, changing colors, changing size, changing font styles and weights. Once your live stream is looking good, and you can see not much is required to make it look good, you will move on to your other state. So you could go to that countdown screen. Totally up to you how you want to design this. I think it's a good practice to make it consistent with your other states, so I'll use the same background image here. And then I'll come over to my check-in screen, and I will adjust that background as well. Now there's a bit more you can do in here. You could again adjust your logos, adjust your text, edit the text, change your button colors. It's really straightforward. I'm just going to leave you with the basics and reaffirm the importance of just making this look exactly how you want it so that your Splash Studio event is surrounded by a beautiful look and a really high level of branding. When you're done in here, you'll save your changes, and then you can move on to your event overview screen, where we'll now think about our calendar invites, our confirmations, and our reminder emails. So recommendation now is to go into event settings. Inside event settings, if you go into site metadata, you're going to see that there's a calendar attachment description that's using this virtual event URL tag. This is very important because the way guests get to your virtual venue, Splash Studio and virtual event page, is through this tag. This tag produces a personal access link for each guest. So this is a great start. It's automatically on my calendar because of the presence of virtual event page, and this will put the virtual event URL on my guest's calendar. Perfect. No action required here, but I validated its presence. Next, I'm going to go into my confirmations, specifically my email confirmation. A good practice here, while it's not required, but it's definitely typical, would be to include a access link, that same access link on the calendar invite, in the confirmation email. So what I do is I click on the button here, I go into button settings, and I'm going to include that virtual event URL. This now is linking the button to each guest's unique access link. I can call this whatever I want. In this case, I'm using access link. I could say join the webinar, whatever I want. Worth noting that you can also include this dynamic tag in the body of the email. That works just as well, but I do prefer the button because it's a bit more elegant. So I'll save my changes here, and now I'll set up my reminder email sequence. Virtual events typically feature at least one reminder email, if not multiple, so Splash Studio is no exception. In this example, I set up a few different drafts of typical emails I would send for a Splash Studio event: 24-hour reminder, a 1-hour reminder, and a starting now email. The key similarity between these three emails is that they'll all contain that virtual event URL that we discussed. So let's take a look at this one. We have our email design, and again, same thing we saw with the confirmation. We have our button. We can go into button settings. We could say something like access link, and we want to make sure we have that virtual event URL. When this reminder goes out, it will appear at the top of our guest inbox, and they're one click away from joining our Splash Studio event. Perfect. From there, I would send myself a test email, add my attending quick list as my list of recipients, and then go on to schedule my email to the appropriate time leading up to my event. So to quickly recap what we did, we went into virtual event page. We designed that experience out all three viewing states to make sure our studio event was on brand and looking amazing. We double checked on our calendar invite, going into settings, site metadata to validate the presence of our virtual event URL. We went into our confirmations and updated our confirmation email design to also include our virtual event URL. And then we set up our reminder email sequence, each with a call to action that goes to, you guessed it, the access link created by the virtual event URL.